Did you know that some of the most celebrated American car brands knowingly sold vehicles that were guaranteed to rust, violently break down, or literally trap you in a rolling ball of fire? Forget the glorious legends of classic Detroit muscle. Today we are exposing the dark, heavily guarded secrets of the United States auto industry. We are counting down the 10 most catastrophic, embarrassing, and downright dangerous cars ever manufactured on American soil. Machines so terribly engineered they permanently destroyed decades of hard-earned reputation. You absolutely need to see the fiery death trap waiting at our #1 spot, so do not even think about clicking away. Hit that subscribe button right now and let's uncover the terrible truth. Kicking off our list at number 10, we have the 1970 AMC Gremlin. The year is 1970. American automakers are absolutely panicking because small, efficient Japanese imports are stealing their market share. American Motors Corporation needed a subcompact car immediately. The corporate secret here is documented history. AMC's chief designer, Richard Teague, literally sketched the original design for the Gremlin on the back of a Northwest Orient Airlines vomit bag, and honestly, it completely looks like it. This rush design process set the stage for an absolute automotive engineering tragedy. Instead of spending the money to develop a brand new, proper compact car platform, AMC executives took the lazy route. They took their existing AMC Hornet, chopped off the entire rear end with zero regard for aerodynamics or proportions, and called it a day. The result was a bizarrely proportioned rear-wheel drive car weighing over 2,600 pounds with a heavy 6-cylinder engine shoved into a tiny wheelbase. The handling was absolutely atrocious, the ride was bone-jarring, and the back seat was basically a suggestion rather than a real place for humans to sit. Adjusted for inflation, buyers were paying around $15,000 today for a chopped-up sedan that drove like a shopping cart with a broken wheel. It struggled to reach 60 miles per hour in under 15 seconds, which was dangerously slow even back then. Disaster meter score, 4 out of 10. It was weird, it was rushed, but at least it did not spontaneously combust. However, if you think chopping a car in half is a bad idea, wait until you see the giant plastic slow-moving spaceship sitting waiting for you at number 9. At number 9 is the 1990 Chevrolet Lumina APV. The early 90s minivan craze was in full swing, and General Motors desperately wanted a massive slice of the pie. But instead of designing a practical family hauler, Chevrolet delivered what the American public immediately nicknamed the Dustbuster. Just look at this plastic thing. It looks exactly like a handheld vacuum cleaner. The front windshield was so massive and sloped so aggressively that it required the absolute largest piece of windshield glass ever installed on a production vehicle at that specific time in automotive history. Driving this massive 3,600-pound Lumina APV was like piloting a moving greenhouse directly from the back seat. Because the slope was so extreme, there was a massive 3-foot expanse of plastic dashboard stretching out between the steering wheel and the base of the windshield. Drivers literally could not even see the front of their own car, making basic parking an absolute nightmare. Behind the scenes, General Motors executives were warned about this highly polarizing design by multiple focus groups, but they stubbornly pushed it through anyway, convinced it was the future. In today's money, families dropped nearly $35,000 on a slow vehicle that took over 12 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. It made them the absolute laughingstock of the neighborhood carpool line. Disaster meter score, 5 out of 10. It was a functional failure of basic design principles and poor visibility, but a weird vacuum cleaner van is just ugly and awkward to drive. Our number 8 spot is an absolute unforgivable insult to the very concept of a rugged American sport utility vehicle. Are you ready for some extremely cheap plastic? Coming in at number 8, the 2007 Dodge Nitro. Fast forward to the mid-2000s. Chrysler is frantically trying to capitalize on the booming sport utility vehicle market. The Dodge Nitro was marketed heavily as an aggressive, tough, masculine vehicle. But underneath those extremely flared fenders and aggressive styling was nothing but cheap, cynical corporate corner cutting. The Nitro was heavily based on the Jeep Liberty platform, but somehow Dodge managed to make it significantly worse in every conceivable way, taking a decent foundation and turning it into an absolute disaster of an automobile. Step inside this 4,000-pound box, and you were immediately greeted by what can only be described as a desolate plastic wasteland. The interior literally felt like it was molded from recycled milk jugs. The driving dynamics were incredibly sluggish, the suspension was painfully stiff, and the visibility was terrible due to the incredibly high window lines. It was a vehicle entirely built on fake bravado. It looked tough on the outside, but it absolutely could not handle a simple corner at 40 miles per hour without terrifying the driver and threatening to roll over. You were paying the modern equivalent of $32,000 for an SUV that was all bark and literally no bite. It was a complete masterclass in how to heavily disappoint your loyal customer base. Disaster meter score, 6 out of 10. It was cheap plastic trash dressed up as a tough guy at the gym. But if you think fake toughness is bad, you truly have not seen fake luxury. Let me introduce you to the ultimate overpriced corporate scam sitting proudly at our number 7 spot on this list. Number 7. The 1977 Lincoln Versailles. In the late 70s, Cadillac was making an absolute killing with the Seville, and Lincoln was desperately wanting to compete in the highly profitable compact luxury segment. But Ford, Lincoln's parent company, absolutely did not want to spend the money required to build a luxury car from the ground up. So they brazenly committed the ultimate sin of the automobile industry, lazy badge engineering. They took a cheap mass-market Ford Granada, slapped on a fake spare tire bulge on the trunk, added a shiny Lincoln grille, and doubled the retail price. This was not just a slight markup. Adjusted for inflation, the Lincoln Versailles cost a staggering $56,000 today. For that massive premium, buyers got a car weighing roughly 3,800 pounds with the exact same roofline, the exact same doors, and the exact same miserable, floaty driving experience as the dirt-cheap Granada. The executives in the boardroom genuinely thought the American consumer was stupid enough to be completely fooled by a fake vinyl roof and some extra chrome glued onto the sides of the car. It was incredibly insulting. The Versailles failed miserably, taking nearly 14 seconds to hit 60 miles per hour and heavily damaging Lincoln's hard-earned reputation for true luxury. Disaster meter score, 7 out of 10. The Versailles was an arrogant, vastly overpriced scam forced upon the public. But speaking of overpriced scams, our next car tried to desperately pretend it was a high-performance European sports car, only to literally rust away into dust before you could even finish paying off the bank loan. Get ready for number 6. Number 6 is the 1975 Chevrolet Vega Cosworth. The standard Chevy Vega was already deeply infamous for being one of the worst-built cars in American history, notorious for its cheap aluminum engine block that warped rapidly and body panels that literally rusted while sitting inside the dealer showroom. So, what did General Motors do? They amazingly teamed up with the legendary British racing firm Cosworth to put a highly sophisticated, high-performance twin-cam engine inside this already rusted-out 2,500-pound trash can. It sounded like an amazing idea on paper. The result was the Vega Cosworth. But here is the jaw-dropping corporate reality. The engineering delays were so incredibly severe that by the time the car actually hit the market, strict new federal emissions regulations permanently choked the advanced engine down to a pathetic 110 horsepower. It was embarrassingly slow, taking over 10 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. Even worse, General Motors priced this specific car at $5,916 in 1975. To put that into perspective, a brand new base Corvette cost just $900 more. In today's money, General Motors was asking around $34,000 for a Vega. You were paying near Corvette money for a car that was 100% guaranteed to rust out from underneath you within 3 years, featuring an engine that couldn't even outrun a gentle breeze. Disaster meter score, 7.5 out of 10. Okay, let's stop for a quick second. Are you noticing a terrible trend here? If you think the engineers were losing their minds in the 70s, Just wait until you see the technological nightmares produced in the 80s. Number 5. The 1981 Chrysler Imperial. Chrysler desperately wanted to relaunch its premium flagship luxury coupe, and they even brought in their good friend Frank Sinatra to market it to the masses. Weighing in at nearly 4,000 pounds, the 1981 Imperial featured a highly controversial bustle-back trunk design that tried very hard to look classic and retro. Instead, it ended up looking exactly like a squashed roll of cheap luggage glued to the back of the car. But the real horror story was hiding deep under the hood. To compete with the Europeans, Chrysler installed a highly experimental, fully electronic fuel injection system on their V8 engine. The major problem? It was catastrophically unreliable. The computer system was so overly sensitive to basic electromagnetic interference that literally driving near high-voltage power lines or simply using a citizen band radio could scramble the computer completely. This glitch would cause the heavy car to violently stall out and lose all power completely while driving at 70 miles per hour on the open highway. It was a massive, life-threatening safety hazard for the driver. Chrysler eventually had to issue a massive secret recall, quietly ripping out their incredibly expensive electronic injection systems and retrofitting the cars with old-school, reliable carburetors just to stop the incoming wave of lawsuits. It was a total embarrassment for a car that, adjusted for inflation, cost over $60,000 today. Disaster meter score, 8 out of 10. A complete technological meltdown. But incredibly, General Motors saw Chrysler's massive financial loss and arrogantly said, "Hold my beer. Welcome to the flying disaster at number 4. Number 4. The 1987 Cadillac Allanté. General Motors wanted a two-seater luxury roadster to directly battle the mighty Mercedes-Benz. Instead of efficiently building it in America, Cadillac's arrogant executives decided to have the bodies designed and fully built by Pininfarina in Italy. That sounds incredibly exotic and great, right? Until you realize how they actually got those heavy 3,500-pound car bodies back to Detroit. They created the infamous Allanté air bridge, which was completely insane from a logistical and financial point of view. Cadillac loaded completed car bodies onto custom-fitted Boeing 747 jumbo jets in Italy and literally flew them 56 at a time across the entire Atlantic Ocean to Detroit, where the V8 engine and transmission were finally installed. This is undeniably one of the most absurd money-burning manufacturing processes in automotive history. Because of this ridiculous flying assembly line, the Allanté was priced at nearly $55,000 in 1987. Adjusted for inflation today, that is over $145,000. And what did you actually get for that astronomical price? A heavy front-wheel drive car with a chronically leaky cloth top, a sluggish engine taking nearly 10 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour, and digital dashboards that failed constantly. General Motors lost massive amounts of money on every single unit they sold. Disaster meter score, 8.5 out of 10, the ultimate display of corporate ego. But what happens when you build a car that looks like $1 million but drives like a minivan? Prepare for the ultimate betrayal at number 3. Number 3 is the 1997 Plymouth Prowler. In the late 90s, the Plymouth brand was slowly dying, and Chrysler desperately needed a miracle machine to bring younger buyers back into the showrooms. They designed the Prowler, an absolutely stunning factory-built hot rod. With its open-wheel front end, sweeping lines, and incredibly aggressive stance, it looked like a classic 1930s street rod driven straight out of a custom tuning shop. The public hype for this 2,800-pound lightweight machine was absolutely unreal. But then came the massive betrayal. When you enthusiastically opened the hood of this aggressive, mean-looking muscle machine, you did not find a roaring V8 engine. Because of tight budget cuts, Chrysler executives forced the engineers to use a 3.5-liter V6 engine pulled straight out of their boring family sedans and minivans. To make it infinitely worse, it was only available with a sluggish 4-speed automatic transmission. No manual option was ever offered. No V8 engine was ever an option. It was heartbreaking. For the modern equivalent of $73,000, Buyers bought a car that completely looked like it could eat a Ford Mustang for breakfast, but repeatedly got beaten off the stoplight by standard Honda Civics. It was a pure aesthetic masterpiece completely ruined by cowardly boardroom decisions. Disaster meter score, 9 out of 10, the absolute biggest letdown of the 90s. But now we enter the absolute peak of American automotive engineering disasters. Number 2 is a mechanic's worst absolute nightmare. Brace yourselves for the engine bay from hell. Coming in at number 2, the 1975 Chevrolet Monza V8. The compact Monza was designed originally to house a very small, lightweight rotary Wankel engine. But when the entire rotary engine program failed at the very last minute due to poor emissions and terrible fuel economy issues, General Motors panicked completely. Their brilliant solution? They forcibly shoved a massive 4.3-liter V8 engine into a tiny engine bay that was mathematically designed for something exactly half the size. The result was an unbelievable engineering abomination. The V8 engine fits so incredibly tightly into the compact Monza's engine bay that there was absolutely zero room for a human hand to work on it. The legendary horror story, which is 100% verified fact, is that in order to simply change the rear spark plugs, mechanics literally had to unbolt the entire engine mounts and use a massive chain hoist to literally lift the heavy engine block off the car chassis. It was sheer madness. Imagine paying over $20,000 in today's money for a 3,000-pound sporty car, only to be handed a massive labor bill just to change a simple spark plug because the mechanic has to surgically lift the engine block. Mechanics outright refused to work on them, owners passionately hated them, and it became a shining example of General Motors' reckless engineering. Disaster meter score, 9.5 out of 10. But somehow, incredibly, the Monza is not number 1, because the car at number 1 literally tried to burn its owners alive. And finally, the undisputed king of American automotive disasters, our number 1 spot goes to the 1984 Pontiac Fiero. Pontiac intensely marketed the Fiero as America's very first mass-produced mid-engine sports car. It was supposed to be a highly affordable budget Ferrari, a true technological marvel that would save the company. Instead, this 2,600-pound wedge of plastic became the vehicle that forever tainted the Pontiac brand. The initial hype was incredibly huge, but the execution was completely deadly. To save money, General Motors executives strictly refused to fund a bespoke suspension system. They wildly pieced the Fiero together using cheap, heavy parts scavenged from front-wheel drive economy cars. But the ultimate fatal flaw was the engine itself. Due to the very cramped mid-engine layout, the 2.5-liter Iron Duke engine suffered from severe oil starvation. A horribly defective batch of connecting rods in the 1984 models meant the engines would suddenly shatter at 60 miles per hour, blasting jagged metal holes straight through the engine block. When the block shattered, boiling hot oil would violently spray directly onto the red-hot catalytic converter. The result? The cars erupted into massive, uncontrollable fireballs right on the highway. According to official government records, the 1984 Fiero had a staggering rate of fires, with 1 in every 400 cars bursting into massive flames. The Fiero was literal rolling arson. General Motors maliciously tried to cover it up before finally being forced into massive recalls. Disaster meter score, a perfect 10 out of 10, an absolute, fiery disaster. And there you have it, the ultimate hall of shame. These 10 catastrophic engineering failures did not just mechanically break down, they broke the deep trust of the American consumer and essentially handed the keys of the industry straight to overseas competitors. Which of these terrifying rolling disasters do you honestly think is the absolute worst? Sound off in the comments below right now. If you loved this high-octane deep dive into automotive history, do not forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more. See you next time.